live. How about this? Okay, now we're live actually on my phone. Sorry about the previous attempt at a live stream. If you just got on, hopefully you didn't. We're driving the Polestar 2, and this is really the only place I could fit my phone so that you sure will stop. I can show you around. But I only have a very limited time with Polestar 2, and I wanted to take the out-of-spec audience around. EV's YouTube channel, but also for a written review for Motor1.com. So you'll see my full reviews, content, everything coming on those channels. With that out of the way, let's talk about Polestar 2. For those who are wondering if we're still on our trip, we absolutely are. I flew from Denver to New York last night, landed at midnight, jumped over to the city this morning, hopped in the car, and now we are on a little road trip in the Polestar 2. I've done, by the end of the day, probably a couple hundred miles in it, but that's about it. So I finished up my filming for all the other stuff, and now it's time to bring you along for the live stream. I can see your comments, so ask questions about the car. But let me give you the technical specs breakdown really quick, and we'll go from there. So it's a 78 kilowatt hour pack. That's the whole pack, and usable is about 75 kilowatt hours, and that's fine. I think that's a really really good buffer on that battery pack. So you know, e-tron, for example, has like a 10 kilowatt hour buffer. 3 seems reasonable, enough to protect the pack. Good job there. It has two 150 kilowatt. I think, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I'll have to look at the spec sheet again. It fell in the back seat because I was doing emergency stops to test the braking ability. It has 2 basically identical power output motors that are rear biased under partial load, so it kind of drives like a rear wheel drive car, but when you go wide open, it uses both motors equally, of course. Hopefully, on the Palisades Parkway, not the best place to live stream, but I have to give the car back in 30 minutes, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about it. So hopefully people start joining back. I'm really sorry that it cut out there. Doing the best job I can. Anyway, let me know in the comments if they should just swipe up on my screen as I'm looking at the road, of course, and we can talk Polestar 2. Anyway, I'll continue with the spec sheets. 2 motors. They're both identical power output. However, it's mostly rear drive. So it drives a little bit like a rear wheel drive car. And then at wide open power, they both kick on full blast. And it's, of course, 50-50 power distribution. It is a front bias weight by 51% in the front, 49% in the rear. So that little extra rear bias helps smooth things out. If I hadn't mentioned it anyway, I've driven the non-performance and the performance version of this car today, just about an hour and a half in each car, and I, of course, prefer the performance version, but I think the non-performance is very adequate. Braking performance was great, chassis tuning was great, everything was really good. So if you have questions about what the differences are, let me know. It's mostly brakes and suspension. Power is the same. I'm sitting here on Pilot Assist, which is Volvo Geely Group's version of ADAS, driver assistance systems, and it's really good. I really don't have to do anything. And oh, we're starting to get some questions, which is great. Pilot Assist is fantastic. Is it quieter than the Model Y? The answer is I would say yes. This car feels like a bank vault. It has that sense of solidity that a lot of Teslas are lacking, and it's a $5,000 upgrade to the performance package for those who are asking. The car itself, build quality wise, is spot on. Of course, they've gone through these cars because journalists are driving them. There's only 6 Polestar 2s in the entire US. I'm in one of them, and everything, you know, panel gaps to just overall quality, gold seat belts, of course, everything is just so cool. I absolutely love it. And one thing that I think was different than on the concept or a really early production car that I sat in Frankfurt last year is the trunk opening is the full hatch now. It's not just like halfway up the trunk, so you could really put a dog back here, even though it slopes down in the back. So very pleased with that. Some of the things I've been able to test today are efficiency, more or less, but it seems to get well, you know, just driving it hard, it was predicting more than 230, 240 miles on a full charge, and that was after really, really pushing it. So I think EPA will be somewhere in that mid 200 range. WLTP is 295, but of course, no one trusts the WLTP range. It just doesn't work for our market. This car gets crazy. People were hanging the car trying to take pictures of this. They were out of an Acura MDX with phones, videotaping, big thumbs up. So this car is a good looking vehicle, no question about it. It's a solid car. These are built in China, which is pretty cool. I don't really think there's many cars that are sold in the US that are built in China. Swedish company, of course, partially owned by Volvo Geely Group. That's their ownership structure there, which means they're able to leverage all of that great Volvo technology and put it in the Polestar. So from pilot assist to even air conditioning vent knobs to shifters, volume, UI, it's all really good and feels very Volvo, which isn't a bad thing. And they're not hiding from the fact they're from Volvo. So I think this is great. There's some cool like touches in this car too. There's a hologram that shows in the glass roof right up front of the Polestar logo. You can kind of only see it in the nighttime. And by the way, for those who are watching and want more info, this is just again a quick conversation, but I'll have full coverage on the Inside EV's US YouTube channel as well as Motor1.com here in the next couple days. Just to get that out of the way. In the US market, this car is not on sale yet. Like I said, there's only 6 in the entire country. I'm in one of them. I'm in a white, I believe, or silver. I honestly didn't look. I kind of just got in the car and drove away. I'm in a performance package Polestar 2, which is the biggest battery, the 2 motors, that's standard, and then of course big brakes, big suspension, good suspension, all that stuff. I appreciate you guys following our road trip. There was a question about XC40 Recharge. I wasn't able to quite see it, but this is the same chassis as XC40 Recharge, which gives us a really good, oh, well, I'm driving here and the nav just said I could save 4 minutes by changing my route, so I will. That's great. Thank you very much. It has a Google UI, which is the first of any car on the market. It's really good. The XC40 Recharge will be the same exact car as this. It's built on Volvo's CMA platform, which is designed to handle full internal combustion cars, plug-in hybrid, and battery electric. However, it was designed from launch to handle a battery electric platform. So they're able to basically Lego stack this battery in with really good thermal management. Again, I ripped this car as hard as I possibly could, full power, full regen, putting as much heat into the drivetrain. And it did start throttling back regen a little bit, the fans kicked on, and then it was back to normal instantly. I was super impressed with that. The Android interface, when we get into some New York City traffic to the west side of Manhattan, I will show you the interface. It is super snappy. Very sorry about that. I can't believe there's this bad service near New York City that I keep dropping out, but I have full 5GE now, whatever that means. Anyway, the UI, the Google system in the Polestar 2 is gotta be, sorry. It's got to be the second best UI of any system I've driven in a car. I don't think it's as intuitive as Tesla. You know, the biggest thing about the Tesla that I love is when you get in, the map is there and the navigate button is instantly there. Here, you can have it set so the map is up, but there's a few sub menus that basically go away. It's a very close second. It is set up in a vertical position similar to like Model S and X. And again, if you stick around, I'll show you that as we start getting closer into New York City. I just need to make sure I don't miss. Sorry, I'm just about to go over the GW bridge. Ride quality is that you can order. The first is the non-performance and the performance, like I was saying. I apologize. This is just not a good setup for a live stream. This is a very last minute idea here. The performance package is more compliant, believe it or not, with the adjustable dampers over little bumps, as far as I can tell. It also gives you tons of adjustability. The non-performance package is fixed damper, fixed spring ratio, and that car is relatively harsh on the little bumps, but soaks up the whoops really well. If you're not a keen driver, if you're just like a normal driver, I would not opt for the performance package. I don't see any need for it for most people. I think the car handles really well out of the box. The braking performance is fine. You're using regen most of the time anyway, and it's quite compliant. The performance package that this car is very compliant over small bumps, but when you hit the big ones, it's extremely harsh, and that's totally adjustable. This car is set up, I believe, in a little bit of a stiffer setting. Right, the ability to put the map in the gauge cluster, I should mention, because this car is not a Tesla Model 3, you have two screens, and you're able to take the screen and put the screen up in the instrument gauge cluster in front of you, which is currently yelling at me because I'm running out of electricity. I'm really not. I have 15% remaining. That's plenty. You're welcome for the comment on the ride. I think it's harsher than competitors, but fits well with where this car is designed to be in the marketplace. This is definitely a car that you're going to drive around town, commute to work in, but it's also one that if you find yourself on a back road, you can rip up some really good stuff. I found some cars earlier up in Bear Mountain. I took the car up the Hudson River, which are the only good roads around New York City, and went up there and found some cars to drive hard with, and it was very impressive. So I think they've done a good job here. If you have any other questions, feel free to go through. I think we should talk, the big elephant in the room is charging infrastructure. How is this going to handle all of that kind of things? And I think they haven't released their partner company yet. They will soon, but we all know who that's going to be anyway, to be totally transparent. And I think it really just comes down to station reliability at this point. And they have the technology in the car to show real-time station availability and do route planning to the fastest stations and the stations that are less busy and more reliable for your route. It's not in this particular car. This is a pre-production, but it gets over-the-air software updates. It can over-the-air update every single module from drivetrain to ADAS to the full UI of the car. It's pretty amazing. And it's just the thing. Most of my audience, you guys own Teslas or are familiar. The car companies are really starting to get things right. I wanted to charge on Electrify America with this car because it should do 150 kilowatt peak charging, which I think is acceptable for road trips. It's not pushing it. Can they update that to do more in an over-the-air software update? Yes. Have they said that? No, but they could. I wanted to do that today, but I sort of ran out of time. I'm going to have the car again to do full tests. Of course, our 70 mile per hour range test, our charging test, a road trip. I'm going to try and do a cross-country trip in the Polestar 2, actually, because I think it would be a big story, not only for the car, but also charging infrastructure, if it can do it reliably, and just EVs in general away from Tesla. I think we need to get to the point where these sort of trips can happen easily without worry. So they claim, and I'm not sure if everyone that I talk to totally knows about what they're talking about, but they claim it should do 150 kilowatt to 80% state of charge. That would be impressive if it could, because again, it's only 75 kilowatt hour usable. That's going pretty deep into the pack with a high charge rate. So I would be curious if that's the case, which again, Polestar says it is. That is huge news, because a Tesla can't do that. At 80%, my car is ramped down to 50 kilowatt. If a similar sized battery pack in a Polestar can do 150 kilowatt, that's insane. That negates the benefit of V3 supercharging. How long will I have the car for? I've had this car from, let's think, around noon, 1 o'clock, and I have to give it back by 4:25 at the latest, and it's 4:37 predicted arrival. So they're going to have to wait on me for a little bit, but I got stuck in traffic having too much fun. Yeah, I really am in love with this car for many reasons. Now, the big question is, do you go for Polestar 2 or XC40 Recharge because they're basically the same car. The Polestar 2 will have slightly more range because it's more aero, and they've optimized a few things about the car to use a little less energy. So that might be the way to do it. The other, I guess really the difference comes down to looks, dealer support network locally to you, because again, Polestar is only going to have their service networks in key hubs for the next couple years, and then they are going to move. Give me 1 second, so I have to figure out where I'm going to go. I need to go on the GW bridge to the lower level, which is, I think, I'm honestly not sure where I'm supposed to go here. Anyway, if I get lost, I keep the Polestar longer. So Polestar is going to have servicing hubs throughout the U.S. that they're going to be able to basically leverage with partner Volvo dealers that are also authorized Polestar dealers. And because, again, with franchise laws, they can't just have Volvo stores work on them. So yeah, I think it's going to be... Sorry about that. So 80% of their current orders for Polestar are within a location for a service center within 150 miles. And they do free pickup delivery with loaner car for those within that 150 mile radius. Although they are going to have to go to tier 2 cities like Atlanta, maybe even like a Dallas or Austin, and those will have to come later on, probably in the following year is what they're saying. But at least this year they'll have the coasts covered, west and east in the US, which I think is more than reasonable. I'm actually going to hold you all here and hope I don't crash. Driving down, I'll show you. Actually, can I flip this camera around? Let's see, there goes the police. And, oh, they're trying to come over. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Didn't get pulled over. Have it. That's good. Here's the UI system. It's really nice. We're just sitting in bumper to bumper traffic. And this essentially is super snappy. Look how... Here we are, we're back. We have 25 miles to empty right now, which I think is plenty, of course. Let me kick on pilot assist while we're in here. So this little steering wheel means that the car is steering, and the car, of course, means that it's following the car in front. I can adjust my distance somewhere here. This is where I can adjust distance, and there we go. And yes, I was actually talking to Polestar about their sales numbers in Sweden and Norway, and they've been blown away by the response there. They've already sold out Norway for like a while, so huge uptake. These cars are going to look beautiful in that market anyway. I'm going to put you back here so I don't have to hold you driving in New York City. There we go. And now I'm actually turned on so I can see all comments. You can see I'm a very amateur YouTuber here. It's why I don't consider myself one, because I have no idea what I'm doing on the platform. From connection issues to commenting issues, we're there. So now that I can see all of your comments, feel free to ask away. I was only able to see a little bit before. I want to talk about rear visibility for a second, because I think this is not good. I don't think it's bad, but it's a little window out there. It's certainly gonna not be annoying, but what I don't have is great side rear visibility. Now, thankfully, the car has 360-degree cameras as well as amazing blind spot monitoring. These side view mirrors, I should actually show you, those are wild. They're really cool. They are painless mirrors, so there you can see there's no border around the edge here. It's just all glass, and the blind spot monitor is built in to the edge. You can't see them, and it can't see it until it's lit up. So I'd say that's a pretty impressive touch. I believe the Polestar 1 was the same way. And there we go, back in your holster. It feels like a leather wheel. Is not. That's completely animal free. I think that's really cool. And the materials that they went with aren't mimicking leather either. They're very I want to say honest in material usage, that everything is extremely durable, but not meant to look like leather. It's just premium in its own way. I'd say it's like the future of luxury is how I feel this car kind of is like. This glass roof doesn't open, but it does have a hologram of the Polestar logo up front here, which is pretty cool. And Yeah, I'd say pretty good memory seats. The seats are amazing. No complaints. We know Volvo Group has always done seats really well. And you really can't talk about the Polestar yet without mentioning Volvo. We'll probably get there at some point. But right now, there hasn't been as much of a departure from parent company as I would have liked to see. Like even all the press cars that we're driving around in, of course, there's only a handful of Polestar 2s here, but all the other guys, they're driving around in S60 Polestars, V60 Polestars, XC90 T8s, which is cool. They're all plugins though. And here, let me pull up these comments. Sorry for reaching over. There we go. Apologize. Can I comment on the charging profile one more time? Missed some of it. Oh, I must have had connection issues. Sure. And they claim, Polestar claims that this car can do 150 kilowatt peak. I don't doubt that. But they also claim that it can go up to 80% at 150 kilowatt, given the correct parameters of temperature, all the variables that can go into charging, that you have a station that can provide that much power, of course. So they claim it'll do 150 to 80%. I would like to test that. And I wanted to test that as well, but I've just run out of time here in the city, and they need their car back because it's got to go to San Francisco, and I only had a short window, so not enough time to divert to an EA station. But I'm already in talks with Polestar. We're planning to do a big road trip with one. Of course, every car needs I think we should do a big road trip in every EV on out of spec. How cool would that be? That'd be pretty wild, wouldn't it? So at least at that point, we'll be able to test the reliability of their partner charging networks, as well as the charging pro. So they don't require a charging rag over the handle. And it looks like there's an accident in the middle of the road here. Not quite sure what's going on. Let's see. Yes. Is there anything more that you guys would like to know about the Polestar 2? I think, hitting the comments, the seatbelts are awesome because they're gold. That's the reason enough to get a performance pack. Just the overall build quality is great. That's been the most impressive thing. The noise, the ride. We're going over some bumps here. Let me flip it around so you can see. If I lose you, it's because we're animals. And a little water. Hey, let's push it a little bit. Here we go. Ripping it. Pretty awesome. Love this. Look at that view. There's the Hudson River coming down into the west side of Manhattan. Sorry. These roads are awful, and in the performance pack, they're really not too bad at soaking them up, but certainly you can imagine that it could be smoother. How much is the Polestar 2? I believe this car, spec the way it is 64,000, something like this. You'll have to reference it again. I don't have all the specs on me right now, and by on me I mean they're in the car somewhere, but after all the dynamic driving, they've fallen. Oh, the roof, I feel no heat coming through, no perceptible heat at least. It seems to be very similar IR rejection as a Tesla Model Y or 3, and I think it's sort of needed to have that level of protection. Of course, you could always tint over it again. It feels just as good as a Model 3. So I'd say that's really good heat rejection on the roof. Yep, sorry, I know you had asked that a couple times. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. What else would you guys like to know? Let me see if I can go up. Oh, power versus long-range Model 3. It feels very much on par with the long-range Model 3. Here, I'm at 14% state of charge. Let me turn it around. I'm just going to nail it just for a quick second. It's not slow, and the gauges aren't doing that. That's just the way that the car is picking it up. It's not slow at all. It's pretty quick. I think basically I haven't been wanting for more power at all throughout my drive, including some dynamic driving up in the mountains. It's been totally fine. Stereo quality is good, maybe even great, but not excellent. So in the Volvo lineup is the best thing to compare it to. It sounds very similar to their Harman Kardon system. I think it's 650 watt, mid 600 watt system. It has a fresh air subwoofer, which is cool, so it can put more air through for the amount of power that it has. All of the speakers are behind a fabric covering, which is cool, so you don't actually see any grill coverings for speakers. It just looks like doors, and because of their new material, the speakers just go right through the material. I think it's cool, but quality is great. I'd say it's definitely better than the Model 3 Standard Plus that I drove here this morning. Drive this car that has the basic system. That's not so good. The Model 3 let's talk about build quality. I saw someone ask about this. The panel gaps are perfect. Again, these cars were probably all hand gone over. They're not production cars. They were flown over here from who knows where, probably China, where they were made, and then that was good. The range is good for the same battery pack in a slightly larger car than Model 3. It goes slightly less. We don't know EPA range yet, but WLTP is 295. My guess is probably 250 miles EPA. But like I said, driving it hard, it was even showing mid 200 mile range. So I would say the range is more impressive than I was at least expecting. And the biggest takeaway really is build quality, noise, like I was saying, but also just the overall feel of the car. It's very different from a Tesla, and Polestar is open. This car is not out there to win over Tesla owners. They've already driving an EV. That's great. Let them get what they're happy with. But what this car is really meant for are the BMW, Mercedes, Audi drivers that are thinking about getting an EV, that for whatever reason the Tesla doesn't work, either from a build quality perspective, a design perspective. This is the option for them. And personally, I think this is a much better design than Model 3. I think it's a much better driving experience behind the wheel. I prefer the way the performance pack drives put in the settings, but it doesn't have all of the Tesla fun things and also the great charging infrastructure that I rely on all the time. So there are, it's a car for a certain group of people. Am I driving to a Volvo dealer? I think so. Polestar set our last destination in the cars to, I believe it's Manhattan Motor Cars. I don't know if they have a Volvo store or not, but I think they do. This is a Polestar company corporate car that is for media to drive, for us to drive, to share with all of you. I took a lot of pictures, a lot of videos that I'll put together, and overall I've been very impressed. So thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to sign off here in the next little bit as I'm approaching the car. What's the sort of the clunky sounds? I think the clunky sounds are coming from my phone banging against the screen, so I really apologize for my poor execution of making a live stream here. I just figured you'd want to join around in the fun. So and by telematics, someone else does have telematics. I assume they want to know if it has an app and preconditioning and good data with that. And yes, 100%, you can have an app. And actually, your cell phone, your iPhone, will become your key for this car. So you'll have a backup little accessory key, and it's just like a typical Volvo key, and that's about it. So there we go. So for next live stream, I think we've learned we need phone mounts and to get a new cell carrier other than AT&T, because this one's been a challenge. And yeah, it was great showing you guys the Polestar 2. Again, I'm a huge, I don't want to say a huge fan. I just think, yeah, I'm going to say it. I'm a huge fan. I think this is a great car. I know I'm supposed to be objective, but it's won me over. All of this material is just so cool. The design is awesome. This volume knob here being in front of the shifter, I do not like, because every time I want to change the volume, I have to like route around this shifter, and it just doesn't feel right. So here we are coming into New York City. I'm going to fly back out to Denver soon and continue this road trip that you've all been watching. And yeah, sorry, I know that it's painful to watch. If you want good quality content, do not watch live streams from me. Just putting that out there. And I will talk to you guys later on. Thanks for watching, and thanks for coming for a drive in the Polestar 2.